Hello, cosmonauts. Today, we are going to be exploring what Reddit ask. Who's the stupidest person you've ever met? And what story perfectly sums up their stupidity? Answer 1. My most recent ex wanted to make dinner. She tried to direct me to make the decision for her, but she eventually settled on one of those soup-in-a-bag situations. For background, I usually did all the cooking. I left the kitchen to let her at it while I had other shit to do around the house. I came back in like 10 minutes to grab a beer and saw that she got my 8-quart Instant Pot out and boiled like 8 quarts of water and threw the soup mix in. Saw it, and it looked pretty anemic as a soup. I looked at the instructions and saw her mistake. I asked if she followed the recipe. She said she did, to the letter. The instructions were, boil 8 cups of water, put mix in, and boil for 20 minutes, and soup. I asked her why she used quarts instead of cups. She denied it and still said, I followed the instructions exactly. I pointed out that she was using 8 quarts of water rather than cups. She then said, I didn't know there was a difference between cups and quarts. She is like mid-30s. We had cup measuring things. We had the internet. I just was so dumbfounded. Like the lying and the incompetence. I couldn't believe it. Just weaponized incompetence at its best. Answer 2. I work IT at a public school. The bookkeeper is my point of contact. She is hands down the stupidest adult I've ever met in my life. I've told her at least 50 times since 2018 to not email with an issue to use our work order system. Just last week she did it again. When I reminded her again, she said she wasn't sure if the issue required a work order. An entire wing of the school had lost network connection. The lazy-ass principal put her in charge of the Title I money that could only be used for technology. She bought $50,000 worth of printers because that's what the teachers asked for. The teachers wanted color printers. Fair enough. This woman never consulted me. She just called the local printer supply company and they ripped her off good. She bought a color printer that would serve as a network printer for a small office for each teacher. She then spent $1,500 on docking stations for the teachers' laptops. After my boss told her we don't support those. When I asked why, she said she didn't know what they are and that some teacher told her to buy them. When I explained what they did and that we still won't support them, she bought extra monitors for them. It's just baffling how her brain functions. Luckily, we could use the monitors. The docking stations are still sitting in a storage room 3 years later. She once forgot her password, and I reset it and told her to create a new one. She kept saying it won't let her. The requirement is 8 characters for a password. She was typing in 6. When I explained it to her, she said she didn't know what characters means. I don't know how this woman survives in everyday life without accidentally killing herself. Answer 3. I don't know what the hell was wrong with her, but she was in her 40s and as dumb as a box of rocks. We worked together in a food takeout booth and she couldn't do anything. She took someone's cash, struggled to make change even with the total displayed on the register, and then handed them their change and the original money back. I had to pacify an angry customer because when this lady gave her 1 scoop of ice cream, it was 1 metal ice cream scoop sized. I finally figured out she could do the least damage by washing dishes, so that's where I stuck her while I busted my butt doing the job of 2 people. Answer 4. A very sweet woman who worked for me 40 years ago. When God was handing out brains, she stepped out to get her nails done. I had the TV on in the studio one day, and there was a show on the History Channel about digging up dinosaur bones. She asked me, why didn't people domesticate dinosaurs the way they did dogs? I explained that humans have only been around about 200,000 years, and dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. She thought about it for a minute and said indignantly, they show them together in the movies. Answer 6. This girl from my high school named Shauna. Room temperature IQ is the best way to describe her. Shauna spelled giraffe as draff, because that's how she pronounced it. Shauna told us about Asia. No, not the continent, the one in Europe. Shauna thought that you could die of leg pain. No other issues, just that leg pain would eventually kill someone. And my personal favorite, when discussing an assault case in law class, Shauna informed us we couldn't say penis because it's a bad word. When asked what word she thinks we should be saying to address that body part, she said, testicle. That men have 1 testicle and 2 balls. We doodled a picture and had her label it. She thought the shaft was called testicle, and the testicles were scientifically called balls. Our teacher even tried to correct her, and she argued and told the teacher she was wrong. I often wonder where she is now. Hey you, if you enjoying the video, subscribe for more histories. Answer 7. Worked with a guy on an offshore oil platform in the northeast of Scotland. He'd been on fishing boats previously, and the boat he was on had started taking on water. The skipper had sent out a Mayday SOS call, and some of the crew had gotten into a life raft. That left this guy, the skipper, and one other in the wheelhouse of the fishing vessel. The Coast Guard are on their way, and they're trying to remain on the boat as long as possible, but eventually the skipper concedes that it's time to put in their immersion suits and get in the water. This guy duly puts on his immersion suit and enters the water. No sooner after entering the water, he's getting dragged down. Nothing he does is keeping him afloat. So, after a brief struggle, he makes peace with his maker and gives up the fight. As he slowly starts to descend towards his impending death, a hand reaches down and grasps him, dragging him to the surface. That hand belonged to a Coast Guard diver from the Norwegian Coast Guard. When we questioned this guy on why he thought he went down so quickly, he proudly retorted, "Well, nay cunt telt us to zip up a suit." No one told me to zip up the suit. This guy terrorized me for years on that platform with his dumb ideas and outrageous, life-endangering actions. And I've often thought of looking up that Norwegian Coast Guard diver and taking a shite in his cornflakes. Answer 8. Worked at a local television station with this guy, John. One of his jobs was to produce a commercial for a sandwich shop in town. Their logo was the name of the shop in between two slices of bread, so it looked like the name was the meat and fixings of the sandwich. The words were supposed to slide onto the screen from the side while the bread came up and down from the top and the bottom. John arranged the elements so the name of the shop was about half the size of the bread, so it looked like a sideways H. I mentioned that it looked out of proportion, but he insisted it was correct. "John," I said, "look at your shirt." He happened to be wearing a t-shirt from the sandwich shop with their proper logo right on his chest, and he still insisted his version with the tiny shop name surrounded by two monstrous slices of bread was okay. The client was rightfully pissed off, and we agreed to redo the commercial at no charge. Answer 9. Nice guy, but dumb as a box of hammers. Had to have his simple job re-explained to him in laborious detail every shift. Would walk directly in front of passing cars at one workplace. I tried to get him a job he applied for at my current workplace. I was honest with my boss about what to expect, but did emphasize he's a nice dude and can be trusted to be a warm-body security guard in a low-effort area. Dude showed up for his interview and was asked to wait outside while another candidate was interviewed. He had a freak out and kept knocking the door to be interviewed and introduce himself again. Boss just couldn't. Answer 10. I hurt my wrist moving boxes and heavy stuff. So, I wore one of those over-the-counter braces one can buy. I stated I hurt my wrist, so I was letting it rest for a day or two, and then it should be better for ordinary use. This stupid person was someone at my work. She was native to English and it was her only language. So, no language confusion happening here. Note me wearing a wrist brace did not affect my work at all and was more of a conversation piece about how my weekend was. She insisted I couldn't know it was hurt without an X-ray to confirm, even when I stated I was super sure it wasn't broken. She couldn't understand or accept that a person could self-diagnose their own pain. She felt a person couldn't state they were in pain or hurt without a doctor examining them to diagnose that pain existed, and that an X-ray was the go-to way to diagnose general pain. She was a college professor. Someone else I know insisted that genetically modified food was exactly the same as not genetically modified food, even when examined at the molecular level, but better. Basically, they insisted that two things could be exactly the same in every way, but one be better. They also insisted a certain hand cream could contain over 100% water, as in having more water than an equal-sized container. This person was in university and eventually graduated in something science-related. Answer 11. I saw a man smoking at a petrol station once. I said something to him, and he pointed to his toes. He was on the correct side of a pavement crack, meaning he wasn't technically in the petrol station, like a tourist on the equator, as though physics gives a hoot.
That was enough for today, cosmonaut. I'll wait for you in the next travel.